All right, call the meeting to order. So go ahead and with the roll. Thanks.
Let the record reflect Commissioners Glacier, Hara, and Woodsquare are present, and we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. All right, next we have flag salute and moment of silence.
Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so any commissioner comments?
Well, I guess I attended the opening of Fire Station 15, which was it's a beautiful Romanesque building, in the words of the president of USC. It is a beautiful building, and I'm really happy that our firefighters have such a beautiful place to work and live in, because they deserve it. And I missed the opening of 7. Unfortunately, I was out of town on some other business, and I was supposed to be out of town today, but I came back because I needed to be at the mayor's meeting last night. I didn't really know how much I needed to be there last night, but I did really need to be there. At any rate, I was happy to see our firefighters at the community meeting last night, which would have, it was a great beginning. And we had, I think, about 4 or 5 guys that came from 34. Is that at Jefferson and 11th Avenue and Expo? 7th Avenue, okay. So some of them were coming for the meeting, which I thought was really good. And we had a battalion chief there, too. I'm not sure exactly which one that was, because things kind of got loose there. But I will visit Station 7 because I want to see the new addition. So I will be out there to visit 7 to see that. Other than that, I guess one of the things I saw in the report was something about business calls. Is it business calls? Something. And I was wondering what that was, but I'll ask the chief later, since I don't have the exact name.
Thank you. Dr. Hara?
So actually, Commissioner Woods-Gray and I, and actually former Commissioner Fazio, were at the E Awards.
Forgot about that, yes.
Where a number of firefighters were honored, and of course the chief was there, and I thought it was really a great event. Also, honoring the police officers who were likewise honored.
And what I liked about the E Award this time is that they put the firefighters first, finally, and not last. And they made a beautiful new coin. From the first time I went there, it had just police on it. But now they have both police and fire. I think they had it last year, too, but it's a lovely coin that now, Chief, I need to get a stand like yours, because I'm collecting a lot of those coins.
Very good. Thank you. I was able to ride out with Fire Station 37s over in Westwood. Had spent a nice good evening with them. A few things came up while I was out there. I mentioned this to Chief, but the radio, there seems to be a hole in our radio network out in that area. So I think I've spoken to the Chief about it, but I would love to get some follow-up on the repeater situation and what a plan might be for us to fix the holes in our radio network to improve communication. And I would also encourage, as part of that report, to have a discussion with LAPD. I see Maggie's in the audience, so serendipitous, about if there's collaboration there. So if I could put that on the list of things for future items for the agenda. The other thing is, if I could ask for our information folks, the internet is apparently as slow as molasses out there as well. And so just to kind of get a sense of, if somebody could get in touch with me, just to let me know what the internet situation is there. It sounds like it's slower than if they were just connected to their cell phone. I also had a nice visit out at Cadet Post 12. I saw their tryouts there with Captain Navarro and his wife. Very, very dedicated group out there. Great to see what they're doing. I, too, attended the openings at 15, and I was also out at 7s. Both were very, very nice. Excited to have great new facilities for our firefighters. Also reminds me that we've got a lot of need left to go. I hope to see some additional investment in our public safety facilities in the future. So I know that that's perhaps something we might be moving in the next couple of years. I also attended the memorial. Always a great event. Always very moving event to attend. And lastly, I got a flu shot this weekend. And I just want to remind everybody that the flu season is upon us. For those in our listening audience, flu shots apparently, and Dr. Hara, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're very, very effective this year. So for your own sake, for the sake of your own health, get one. And for the sake of our hardworking paramedics, get a flu shot as well. So that's all the encouragement I have for today. All right. Moving along, any other comments from others? Okay, great. Moving on to the report to the fire chief.
Thank you, sir. On October 9th, we had a press conference at 27th to announce a partnership with a private vendor that's going to donate a solar power backup system. And we're determining which station it's going to go on into. It's fire station, either going to be 6, 27, or 44. The total value of that's about $300,000. So in the event we lose power, we will have stored energy in the backyard in a battery system. On October 10th, I attended the LAFD Historical Society Firefighter Memorial Ceremony at Fire Station 27. It was a great event. Captain Caldwell was a keynote speaker, and he shared with us his chilling story of when he fell through the roof, and very good message with Captain Caldwell. Immediately following, we went to the grand opening of Fire Station 15. It is a beautiful fire station. We met with the president of USC, Tommy Trojan, and I got the Max Nokias' support to challenge UCLA for them to replace our Fire Station 37 like USC. We'll see how far that goes. And then on October 14th, we promoted the Great Shakeout in Council. Councilman Englander had My Safe LA staff out there, and we talked about that. And then the following day was the Great Shakeout. We aired some news pieces that we worked with on KTLA, and they did a very good job in promoting what we're trying to message, that people need to be prepared. Mm-hmm. Then on October 15th, I was at the E Awards with our commissioners. A great event. I didn't know it had been going on for 34 years, and 3 council members that preceded Councilmember Englander were there, and it was nice to see LAFD first recognized, and 6 of our members were recognized. Great event. And then on October 16th and 17th, I went up to Sacramento with UFLAC President Lima, our color guard, to participate in the annual state memorial. They put several names on the wall. Thank God none of them are LAFD members this year.
That's good.
And that concludes my report.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right, next we have the verbal report on departments on significant incidents and activities.
Good morning, Board.
Good morning.
Council. I just have one incident to speak to you about. This is Daryl Arbuthnot, Valley Bureau Commander. On Saturday, October 10th, right after the beginning of Fire Station 15's opening, we had a small fire out in Sylmar, and where a firefighter fell through a roof. It was a 1-story commercial, wasn't a lot of fire. Fortunately, we were able to get the firefighter out immediately after him falling through. We had approximately 40 firefighters on scene. It took us 22 minutes to knock the fire down. I report that firefighter's doing well. He's back out. He's back home now. But in addition to that, we had the department instituted a safety stand-down, which is where we did it for 3 consecutive days on October 14, 15, and 16. We had a conference call for all the chiefs, which actually transmitted out to all the captains. We went out and spoke about walking roofs, firefighter safety, and those sorts of things. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next we have a report by the medical director.
Good morning, everybody. Mark Eckstein, Medical Director. Significant EMS incident since the last meeting on October 12th in 19's first in. It was a auto versus pedestrian. Apparently a pedestrian stepped out between 2 parked vehicles and was struck by Rescue 62 as they were returning from an incident. This was confirmed apparently by several witnesses, and a 23-year-old female sustained critical injuries. Last night in 11's first in, around 8:30 p.m., we were dispatched on incident 1290 to report a jumper, and tragically, as Task Force 11 set up on scene before they had a chance to deploy the airbags, a 39-year-old female jumped from the roof of an 8-story building, witnessed by several LAFD members and with two LAPD officers on the roof who were about to try to talk her down, and she succumbed to her injuries and was pronounced dead at the hospital. On a brighter note, again, Fast Response Vehicle 1 went into service on September 22nd, and the second Fast Response Vehicle, FR 401, went into service covering fire stations 91 and 98 districts yesterday, and both resources are averaging about 1 call per hour and also canceling about 1 other resource per hour. So preliminary data is very compelling, and both resources appear to be achieving our predetermined goals. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you. All right, any presentations today? No presentations today. All right, we'll do the consent agenda. Can I get somebody to, can I get a motion on the consent agenda?
Go ahead, Dr.
So moved.
So we have a motion to adopt the consent agenda items as recommended, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Consent agenda items 4A and B pass. We're going to move to the regular agenda. I'm going to go ahead and take item 5F out of order because we have Maggie Goodrich with us, and I believe she needs to be across the street shortly. So we're going to extend some courtesy to her. Ms. Goodrich.
Thank you. Good morning. Maggie Goodrich, CIO for Public Safety. So the last time I was here and gave a status on AVL, I believe I explained there's sort of 3 major components to AVL. We can break it down even more granular than that, but I'll keep it high level. So the first was the map replacement for the map that the CAD system uses today. And that is actually to complete the department's move to Windows 7, get everything off of XP, and to give the dispatchers a new and updated map to use as part of CAD. That piece, as well as the second piece, which was the replacement of the mobile client that is on the MDCs, the computers in the vehicles. Both of those pieces were in testing the last time I was here. I'm happy to report that the CAD map replacement is actually being used on the dispatch floor. We're rolling it out sort of incrementally, making sure that the testing's going well, but so far so good. And it looks like by the end of this calendar year, we'll have completely accepted that from the vendor and signed off on that piece of the system. So that's really the first major step there, and that will give all of the dispatchers the ability to see the vehicles on that map. We're also working on sort of a ancillary piece of that, which is to also be able to present that in sort of a web view so that command staff in the field, the chief, whomever may need some situational awareness, will also be able to pull up a view of those vehicles and not necessarily have to be in CAD to see it. So that way you don't need a full-blown sort of CAD client in a fire station, for example, to be able to see the vehicles on the map. We'll be able to see that in more of a sort of user-friendly web view. So that's also in progress as well. The mobile client piece was tested, was going well, but we found one issue that's going to need to take a few more months to work out. And that's actually directly related to another project that I explained the last time I was here on sort of the status of the CAD feasibility study. And that is the replacement of the radio network controller, which is the system that takes the data from CAD and transmits it out to the MDCs in the vehicles. So we're in the process of designing that replacement. If you recall, I mentioned that existing system is about 6 years old. Has been end of life for about 6 years. It's many years old, but has been end of life for about 6 years and has to be replaced. That replacement is actually going to require a change to that mobile client by the AVL vendor. And so we're asking them to make that change so that we can sort of roll those things out together. So we're probably talking about 4 to 6 months or so for that change and the completion of that effort before the mobile client is completely ready to go. But the good news is hopefully that will improve some of that coverage that you were talking about earlier, Commissioner Glazier, in terms of making sure that those transmissions are getting to the MDCs with that sort of new and improved hardware for the radio network controller. The third and final piece then was the discussion around integrating AVL and CAD to automate unit recommendations in some way, because with the current sort of phase one approach, the dispatcher will have to sort of look in two places, at the map and then also at CAD. So there was discussion around ultimately integrating that so that is an automated process. If you recall, the last time I was here on the feasibility study around CAD, I mentioned that I had brought a Gartner group in to do an analysis and make a recommendation. And actually, Gartner is serving as the project manager on the AVL project and heavily involved in the details and has helped develop the plan that I'm presenting on today. They have also recommended that we hold on making a decision on how that integration might work until after we complete the RFI process, the request for information process that I had mentioned that we're going to do an evaluation of the market of fire CAD systems out there. And also hold until we've completed the analysis of the fire department's requirements against the LAPD's existing CAD, and sort of have a decision point and an understanding of which way we're going to go in terms of a CAD replacement for the fire department. And so the decision was to hold in that integration until these other steps have been completed, primarily because to do that integration requires essentially taking the existing CAD and kind of ripping it wide open in order to do that integration. And we don't want to do anything that will jeopardize the reliability of the existing CAD, and we want to make sure we do that, thoughtfully if we are going to go down that path with the existing CAD in any way. And so, the decision at this point is to wait, see the responses to the RFI, determine the results of the CAD feasibility analysis, and then make a decision on that integration. And the good news is that RFI should be ready for release here in probably the next 3 to 4 weeks at most.
Great. Sounds like things are moving. When are you due back here for another update? What do we do? Quarterly? Are we doing that?
I think we were doing that quarterly.
Okay. So at your next, when you return, it sounds like there's a lot of stuff on the front burner right now. Can we get an updated Gantt chart of that sort of progress so we can see where we are against stuff?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the group? Nope. Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's item 5F. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled programming. We will go to item 5A. Report by the Department on status and disposition of LAFD matters. Consider referred to city council committees or other city departments. Okay.
Morning, Commissioners. Graham Everett, I'm Chief of Staff with the report back on City Council and Committees Activity Report from October 5th through October 9th. Kind of a quiet time over there. However, we did have one motion that came through on public safety regarding El Nino emergency preparedness, and we're assisting several other departments with a report back to public safety about the city's plan to prepare better for the anticipated El Nino storms. And in addition to that, this morning we have a couple of items at public safety regarding our training fund, but it's actually from fiscal year 2014-2015, so it should just go through on consent, but we're waiting to hear back. Other than that, that's all I have for you.
A question just kind of related to El Nino. Some citizens have mentioned this to me. Who is responsible for cleaning out the drains and making sure that our streets are going to flow smoothly?
It's interesting. We're working collaboratively with street services and EMD and several departments. But yesterday, I think our members yesterday, when they had that type of issue with the drains, worked with themselves to do an emergency fix. But street services will come out and assist us with the drain cleanage and cleaning the drains and making sure the sewer system is or the storm drains are open for runoff.
Yeah, I forgot about yesterday because they were thinking about this a couple of weeks ago that I was talking with people.
Yeah.
And they were concerned about the fact that they thought we would have flooding if we didn't clean out the drains. And so
That seemed to be the issue
I was sure that
yesterday.
the city was on top of it, I told them.
Yes, ma'am.
It is street services should be proactively, I believe, working on. You ever see? Sometimes I'll see their big vacuum trucks, and that's I think what they're doing is cleaning out those drains with those big
Okay,
vacuum
they haven't
trucks.
got to us yet, but I'm sure they'll.
So hopefully, I suspect if you have a clogged drain, someone should call 311 and make sure that gets on the.
We want to unstop before the rain comes.
Agreed. Yes.
Okay.
Just a quick question on the El Nino question. Is there something different about our preparation here that we should be aware of? And if so, should we agendize it, or is it just what we always do?
That's what we always do. I think we are working with those other departments to see where we can assist them where needed. We're also looking at our supplies for sandbags and for sand ordering through the different agencies, and just preparing our people for the anticipated storms.
Great. Making sure our swiftwater boats have no holes in them.
Correct.
Yes, good.
Do you have any idea what the height of the season might be when?
I don't. But we're working with our weather people to get a better
Okay.
understanding of when that might come in. I've heard some, later in the winter, but we didn't know it was going to rain like it did yesterday, so it's very hard to predict.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Great, thank you. Yes, can we take a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. That item 5A passes. All right, we are now on item 5B, report on the Koopa.
Good morning, Commission, Fire Chief, and Madam Attorney. My name is Dan Dragato. I'm actually a new captain in the environmental unit. I've been there for the past 5 months. So I'm here to go over the Koopa evaluation from the second report. And actually, we're preparing our third report, which is going to be turned in on Thursday. It's due on Friday, the 23rd. We've had some significant success this quarter, and that's due to our realignment, new business model, and we've actually created work groups for this report. So in regards to the 19 deficiencies, number 1, 2, and 3 you see are unacceptable. And we've actually sent a report out September 30th. We met with the State Water Board Chief, Laura Fisher. We actually created the 3 documents for these unacceptable deficiencies, and she actually evaluated them and was very, very impressed with how we've accomplished this. I expect that 1, 2, and 3 will either be corrected or a work in progress. We also addressed at that same time deficiencies number 7 and 8 as well. And those, I believe, will also either be a work in progress or corrected. At this time, we've also have a meeting on Friday we have 3 items that need to be dealt with LA County, and that will be addressed on Friday. As far as all the deficiencies on this next report, for the third report, we expect everything to either be a work in progress or corrected. A work in progress, I've spoken with a few of the State Water Board members. What it will entail is that you'll have to be on a work in progress for an entire year. So we'll have to show consistency for that entire year. But talking with Laura as well, she can also take us off a PIA report. They can eliminate the PIA. We'll just have to, they'll probably, what I calculate is probably 7 of them will have to go for an entire year to show consistency. We've been doing very well, and the membership itself has been really working hard, and actually the state sees it as well, which is very exciting for us. According to our statistics from last quarter, our fiscal quarter started July 1st to September 30th, our first quarter, and we're actually at 24%. And this time last year, we were at 13% for underground storage tanks. So we're making a significant progress, and that's also with follow-up and actually doing complete inspections. So we're definitely on the right track, and I want to thank you, Commission, as well as you, Fire Chief, for helping us with this success, because it's really been advantageous for us. I really appreciate it. Any questions?
For items 1, 2, and 3, and as I read it, the issue is having enough inspectors to actually accomplish the inspections. Maybe you or the marshal can clue us in on where we currently stand, whether we're asking for more inspectors and
Yes, sir.
what have you.
Like I said, I've been there for 5 months, and so I had to get the collaboration of all the inspectors to see what was causing this, what was happening. Thank you to Fire Chief. We've actually brought up our staffing. We're fully staffed now. So what I've done is I've reassigned the inspectors, where I have 8 UST inspectors solely for underground storage tanks and 6 for hazmat. I've given them district specific, And so right now we're doing it quarterly to see if we're able to make the adjustments, but just from the statistical numbers, and I have biweekly meetings with the members, it looks like we're going to be able to make it. And they're doing a lot of follow-up, a lot of violations, and we have our AEO program also in effect, which has been fantastic. We've collected about $48,000 at this time for that program. So as far as needing more inspectors at this point, I don't foresee it at this point, but it's going to take some time to see at the end of the year, fiscal year, where we're at. They're working hard. There's a lot to do. A lot to do.
Great. Thank you. As far as your goals here, so if we would say we want everything to be corrected or work in progress by the next time we get
yes, my goal is after actually this third report, I'd like to be all work in progress or corrected. Mm-hmm. What we've done is created work groups for this one. Mm-hmm. So we've got all the senior inspectors involved, the acting Koopa manager, and some of the civilians as staff as well, and we're getting all the input. And I have some subject matter experts that are using our Envision, which is our software package, which has been able with MIS, Managed Information Systems, to extract significant data, and which has really satisfied the state's request.
Okay. So on the projected completion dates here, so if we were looking at, like, for example, deficiency number 1, underground storage tanks, right? So the idea is that we got to get caught up on all of our underground storage tanks,
yes.
Right? So when we look at a projected completion date, what does that mean? It says October 2015.
And, the Koopa manager had come up with his date, I think, just to get a response back to them. As far as a date, we have 185 at this point of overdue. We've actually addressed all 185.
Okay.
And so what we plan is within the next 4 to 5 months, those will all be taken care of as well as current.
Okay. So maybe for your next report, if you could, clearly we're not going to hit it in October 20th. It's October. We haven't done that yet, right?
We've addressed all the overdues. So they've been addressed in some way where we've set up a monitoring cert, or we have someone that's actually talked to the representative on the site.
Okay. So I guess part of my question, it seems like we're making great progress. So that's really good.
Yes, we are.
I think for us, it's you guys know way more than we do about what's going on. I think what can be helpful is, and you probably did this last time, but just giving us a sense of what the goal is for each one, and what that means a little bit, so we can see, like, yep, we hit the goal, let's celebrate, or no, we didn't hit the goal, let's talk about what went wrong.
Definitely.
But it's so when I look here, thank you for explaining what work in progress means, and that sounds like that's actually a good news.
It's good news
thing to have there. So
yes.
So that's great. So I think it's helpful for us to see, okay, we expect the work in progress to become corrected by next October, or, we expect we're at 24% on storage tank inspections now. We expect to be at 100% by X date. But if there's a way to kind of break that out a little bit, just so we can, every time the report comes, we can see where were we last time, where are we now, did we hit whatever the goal was for the quarter?
And like I said, probably 7 or 8 of them are going to be like from this point for a whole year. So
and that's great.
And we'll put that out.
So it's helpful to see that, because that way you don't come up here and I don't say, well, why isn't this done yet? Because remember I told you back 3 months ago it's going to be all year long.
Yeah.
So if it just says, if there's one more sheet on here that just says this is what the dates are, then we can say, okay, good. Well, so we're still on track there. But if we miss the date, then presumably you'll put on there, well, the target was missed, and then we can have a conversation about why the target was missed. Or again, we can say, great job if you hit the target.
Will do, sir. Thank you.
The second question I've got for you is just, we talked about the civilian Koopa manager. How's that coming along?
We've completed all the interviews at this time, so now it has to continue as far as who they're going to select, and I don't know the full process of that myself.
Are we feeling good that that's going to move as quickly as we'd like?
We're at the negotiation phase with the top candidate, so it's undetermined where we're at this time.
All right, but we're not being held up by something internally that okay, great. So that's moving as fast as we can move it. Okay, very good. Okay, thanks for the report.
Thank you very much, sir.
Captain Regatta,
Sorry.
I'd just like to commend you for your positive energy that you're bringing to this report. You said you were new, but you really are moving in a very positive direction, and I like that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a huge difference from where we were a year ago. So,
Yeah,
and I think
it's
that's
exciting for the members, and it's exciting for me as well. So
yeah, a lot of credit to go around to a lot of different folks. But
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
I think we had a public comment on this item from Captain Frank Lima.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Frank Lima, President of United Firefighters, Los Angeles City, here to comment on the Koopa evaluation feedback. As you know, there have been ongoing issues with our Fire Prevention Bureau that can mainly be attributed to a previous lack of leadership and a lack of staffing that was created under our former fire chief. UFLAC has repeatedly discussed the importance of our inspection program and the good work of our dedicated inspectors in the field. These are highly competent, dedicated inspectors who have traditionally been overworked and lacking proper direction from the department. Things have gotten better, but I am very concerned with the Cal EPA letter dated September 21st that specifically states that Koopa remains unable to identify reasons for not meeting the annual underground storage tank compliance inspection requirements or a plan of action for reporting compliance and monitoring. I'm sure that the department has a response for this issue, and it appears that we are making progress on the corrective actions that were mandated as part of the Cal EPA review. But I must stress that these issues in our Fire Prevention Bureau must be a priority for our department. We got a chief's budget coming up here on this agenda, and I encourage Chief Terrazas and the Fire Marshal to ask for what is needed in the Bureau to bring full compliance with Cal EPA mandates. None of us wants to be in this position 6 months from now when excuses will not be acceptable. What do we need to be asking for right now in order to meet the demands of the EPA? UFLAC wants to partner on these issues, and just a few short months ago, we worked together to get additional positions back in the Fire Prevention Bureau, and UFLAC pulled politically, and it got approved through the City Council and the Mayor's office. What else needs to be done? How do we need to move forward? Is ask for the proper staffing. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, can I get a motion to receive and file, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion for item 5B to receive and file.
Z and D.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving to our next item, item 5C. This is a report by the department on wall time.
Good morning again. Mark Eckstein, Medical Director. This is a brief report on wall time. As you know, the wall time, which is the name we give for when ambulances or paramedics are on the wall, waiting to transfer care of a patient to an open gurney in ED, also called NAV beds. We've been tracking this data now for over a decade, and we've been working with our hospital partners to try to mitigate this problem. I think that the board needs to be aware this problem is not unique to Los Angeles by any means. It's been widely reported in many cities in America and other countries as well. As our call load's gone up, our transportation rate's gone up, and emergency departments have become more crowded due to boarding, holding of psychiatric patients and other etiologies, our so-called wall time has gone up as well. We've been working closely with internal, external stakeholders to try to come up with some solutions to try to mitigate this ongoing problem, which is obviously a huge issue because it decreases availability of resources, adversely impacts response times, and also adversely impacts morale. Some of the areas we've dealt with and some of the short-term solutions we've created to try to mitigate this problem include dispatching EMS captains to hospitals where we have one rescue ambulance out of service on the wall for greater than 1 hour or more than 3 rescue ambulances on the wall simultaneously at a particular facility. It's incumbent on the EMS captain to have a rapport with leadership and EDs when they get on scene to the hospital to try to get these patients offloaded as quickly as possible, either into the chair in the waiting room or triage area, but off our ambulance gurneys and get our members back in service. We have also worked with the county and state to try to mitigate these issues to the extent now that this is a brand new metric that's become a mandatory data reporting metric from the county MS agency. That's just begun. And we've also included it in one of our mandatory reporting elements of our electronic patient care report. We've also developed a short-term pilot project to create the position of an ambulance control officer. And basically this is a captain who is stationed at Metro Fire Communications. This is to augment existing staff there, particularly the floor captain and battalion chief, to assist with keeping eyes on the situation in terms of situational awareness, in terms of resource availability, and keep an eye on ambulances in terms of how many ambulances are down, so-called wall time at area hospitals, dispatch EMS captains and or battalion chiefs to hospitals to try to free up our resources, and also reconcile ambulances that are reporting wall time but may in fact be responding to quarters. Lastly, we're also working with another potential solution, as it were, to have EMS captains deliver portable gurneys, collapsible gurneys, where the EMS captain will work with the charge nurse at the emergency departments to offload stable but non-ambulatory patients off our ambulance stretchers onto these portable gurneys, and have two members, which is one firefighter EMT team from an 800 series ambulance monitor or watch up to 5 patients, thereby releasing up to 4 paramedic ambulances back in service. Admittedly, the caveat here is none of these are really a panacea. These are just ways to try to mitigate a problem that basically is the fact of supply and demand. As emergency departments have gotten more crowded due to boarding and other etiologies, obviously we're adversely impacted, and it's very difficult to provide adequate coverage during peak periods when we have many ambulances holding the wall for sometimes extended periods of time. As you can see from the report, this problem has gone up basically linearly since we've measured over the last 10 years. The data right now reports the equivalent of about 48 hours of cumulative wall time per day. Again, there is some error rate, which we're trying to drill down on now with the ambulance control officer, but it's certainly safe to say that during our peak periods in certain and well-defined areas of the city, in certain hospitals that are particularly busy, in certain particular socioeconomic areas of the city, underserved areas of the city, wall time is a significant issue and adversely impacts our ability to provide coverage and timely response times. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you might have.
The nurse practitioner unit is part of that is to, I guess, long term may start to help with some of this because there's specific patients that may consistently result in long wait times there. Is that will we see some connection to that or not specifically?
So I want to be clear. So the nurse practitioner response unit, certainly the first one as a pilot, it's a safety and efficacy study. Mm-hmm. So in terms of a measurable impact on this problem, I don't expect to see it.
Okay.
I think cumulatively, as we show that program to be successful, and I'm optimistic and confident we'll be able to get additional nurse practitioner units. And to answer your question, I would, in the affirmative, that as we decrease the super user utilization of 911 utilization, treat and release low acuity patients who we're currently transporting, I think the cumulative effect, yes, we would decrease wall time because our transportation rate would go down. But this is, as you know, it's a complex multifactorial problem. I think the other major cause, not just increased ER volume, but it's the mental health patients. And when I met with hospital leadership from the hospitals that account for the majority of our wall time over the last several years, and I know in work, these are colleagues and friends, probably the single most common denominator is they're looking for some relief in terms of mental health patients. So hospitals that are not LPS designated facilities have no ability to provide definitive care for mental health patients. These are patients who are on
LPS. What is
Lanterman Petrus short. These are designated psych facilities, LPS facilities. They have inpatient. They have psychiatric emergency departments and/or inpatient psychiatric beds. So So the policy now is if our members or paramedics or EMTs go on a patient with primarily a mental health emergency, the policy is by the county, quite frankly, they transport to the closest open emergency department, not a designated psych or LPS facility. Those emergency departments basically perform medical clearance, A PET team or psych evaluation team will go ahead and determine if the patient meets involuntary hold, 5150 or 5250 criteria. And if that's the case, these patients may wait 3 to 5 days if they're uninsured or Medi-Cal to be transferred to an open bed. So some of our smaller community hospitals that have less than 20 beds, they may be holding a fourth of their beds may have psychiatric patients boarding there for several days waiting for transfer to an inpatient psych bed. So that backs up our medical patients and our paramedics. So multifactorial patient, we can't solve this alone. Some of the potential solutions I enumerated very briefly here clearly are Band-Aids. We're trying to come up with some ideas, innovative solutions to get our folks out of the ED because their responsibility is to respond to next emergency, not to monitor patients in the ED hallways. Certainly, if patients are medically unstable and are on cardiac monitors and there's no monitored ED beds, obviously we want to take care of those patients. The patients we're really targeting are patients who are not ambulatory but don't need paramedic or cardiac monitoring because they're fall risks. They may be intoxicated. They may be psychiatric patients of that sort, where there's really no medical reason to keep our folks out of service and not have them be able to respond. Not surprisingly, the hospitals that account for the majority of our wall time are in underserved areas. So this is, again, an ongoing issue, but we've heard loud and clear that we can't solve this alone. We're working with the Hospital Association of Southern California, our hospital partners, and Department of Health Services, and working with the fire chief and the new DHS director, Dr. Katz. We're coming up with some long-term innovative approaches. The nurse practitioner response unit is one approach. We're also very excited to partner with the county on opening freestanding sobering centers. So our paramedics can transport serial inebriates or patients acutely intoxicated to non-hospital-based or non-EDs, so these patients can go sober up and get into detox. These are certainly long-term solutions, but I think it's clear to say that the wall time is a significant issue for us and is obviously adversely impacting our ability to respond in a timely manner, particularly in the neighborhoods that are most underserved in the Los Angeles area.
Okay, sorry, please.
Sorry. Which hospitals are the ones that account for most of the wall time? You mentioned it, but you didn't tell the hospitals. Which hospitals are those?
It's the hospitals where we transport the majority of our patients: USC, California, and Centinela.
So Harbor UCLA is not involved in it?
No, so the hospitals I mentioned, we transport the highest number of patients. So about 40 patients a day to USC, about 40 patients a day to California. They're both busy. They're both trauma centers. They both serve fairly underserved areas. USC is an LPS or psychiatric facility, but there's very strict rules with maintaining a certain number of psychiatric patients versus staff because of the risk of violence and patients eloping. So if the psych ER is full, which it usually is at USC, our folks often have to spend wall time monitoring patients with purely psychiatric issues, not even medical issues. And then the issue of where our responsibility ends versus LAPD is an ongoing discussion. I know LAPD just got additional funding to expand their SMART teams, and they're expanding those, I believe, to 17 citywide, on a 24/7 basis. They used to shut down at midnight. So there's multiple stakeholders, both within the city family and the medical community, to try to deal with this. Again, the hospitals I mentioned, we've met with hospital leadership several times, and again, there's no easy fix to this, but it's something we're monitoring, and we're constantly trying to come up with some short and long-term solutions to try to address this very serious problem.
Okay, thanks.
Now, my understanding is the county fire department, actually, they have contracts with many private ambulance companies for some of the transport that occurs. Do you know what percentage of their transports are actually by private ambulance companies rather than paramedic ambulances?
Yes, sir. That's 100%. So Los Angeles County Fire Department does not have ambulances. Mm-hmm. So all their transports are by private ambulances. So obviously the wall time for them is a nominal issue. Unless the patient's unstable, if their paramedics do accompany the EMTs, the private EMTs stay in the hospital and their paramedics.
Okay, so how does that work? So the county pays the private ambulance company?
I believe there's some stipend involved.
Okay.
You mentioned a lot of stuff in there. So, a couple of questions for me. So I asked a while back about this particular LPS facility issue. We are allowed to transport to centers for cardiac issues or stroke, and we can go to designated receiving centers. We do not have that ability to do so for a mental health psych patient. What can we do to try to convince DHS that they should designate receiving centers so that we can transport to the appropriate location? Any ideas?
I mean, your point is well taken. The problem is, I understand that there's a relative paucity of designated LPS facilities that typically running, over census, as it were. And if we were to institute a policy right now, or the county instituted a policy with patients with predominant or known psychiatric issues or on 5150 holds were diverted to these facilities, some of those facilities would probably drop out of the system. So it's a very tenuous situation now due to the lack of inpatient psychiatric beds and the fact that the few psych ERs we have are typically full. So it's makes sense, but it's not as simple as that. So I know this has become an issue. California American College of Emergency Physicians, or CAL-ACEP, is trying to push through legislation that has had mixed results thus far. So this is a very big issue for every ED in the entire state. This is so our colleagues are trying to approach this through a legislative issue, working with hospitals, but extremely complex and obviously no quick fix. So we're trying to work within the parameters we have. Our proposed plan with offloading patients to gurneys, we're waiting for a comment opinion from city attorney. We want to make sure we don't run into patient abandonment issues. We want to make sure we're not compromising patient safety. We want to make sure we're obviously, if and when we do this, we're doing this with the forehand knowledge of our hospital partners. EMS captain will serve as another set of eyes on these patients, working with the triage nurses to make sure the patients that we designate that would be watched by, several patients watched by 2 EMTs are indeed stable, don't need cardiac monitoring. So we don't want to compromise the safety of the patients we have, but likewise, we want to compromise the next patient due to a prolonged response time.
Yeah, I mean, the LPS facility has to accept the patient or be willing to take the patient, and that's frequently an issue, even if you've got the patient on hold, psychiatric hold and everything, and yet, I mean, even within Kaiser, we have our own LPS facility, but on the other hand, to transfer from like Kaiser Sunset to to the facility, in Chinatown, basically at College Street, it's not easy.
Yeah, because of space constraints.
Primarily, and they have to decide: is there anything that the facility can truly offer this individual that that could make a difference in everything? They can't just take every person who everyone else thinks is crazy in the facility if they really can't offer anything.
Yeah, and again, the psychiatric patients is just one component, and the other reasons the designated LPS facilities would be reticent to do that, as Commissioner Hauer mentioned, a fair number of these patients endorse suicidal ideation, and they're under the influence, and when they sober up, they're released. So the over-triage rate would be substantial. So certainly, whatever the Commission can do through the electeds to help push forth legislation, but clearly this is a global issue. It's affecting pretty much every EMS agency or every EMS provider agency, and it's particularly sobering when we have a number of ambulances that are so-called on the wall and unavailable for response for prolonged periods of time, and there are high-level calls in that first in district and no one's available. So the Chief and I are working very closely with our partners at every level, try to come up with some novel solutions. I call the offload gurney, I call the nuclear option, as it were. I've discussed it with some of the hospital leadership at the hospitals I mentioned. They understand the situation. What we also have done in the interim is really implore our hospital partners to make every effort that if a patient is stable to be removed from our gurneys to a chair in the waiting room or a wheelchair or triage to do so. Most of the hospitals I mentioned have been doing that, but often just becomes supply and demand. These hospitals are busy, getting busier. Sentinel is building a new emergency department, which should help. Obviously, MLK opened a few months ago, which covers a very close catchment area, should help. but every emergency department this year is much busier, up to 25% busier than a year ago. So it comes down to supply and demand right now. So this is a very significant issue we're monitoring, and we're trying to come up with novel solutions to address it both within and with our external partners.
Yeah, you mentioned collaborating with partners. So what is the extent of our collaboration with LAPD on this?
So with LAPD, the issue right now, we're setting up, there's a new commander took over for mental evaluation unit, MEU, and we're setting up meetings with him. I've worked closely with Lieutenant Garcia, who was in charge of MEU. He retired a few months ago. And the issue is because they're expanding their coverage with SMART teams, both in terms of numbers and hours of service, the issue comes into right now, if a SMART team is available and they respond, 80% of the responses by the SMART teams from on-scene officers result in patients being placed on 5150 holds, 80%. If the patient doesn't endorse any acute medical problems and they appear to be stable, they're not altered, then the officer, the SMART team, will transport these individuals themselves and not call us. If we're called because they have a known or perceived medical issue, acute medical problem, altered level of consciousness, and so forth, then we're called and we transport. So it's been working well, but clearly they have a very large unit, and as you know, they have uniformed officers that partner with mental health professionals, and that's all they do. And they are able to transport patients with psychiatric issues and no obvious medical issues.
So that's one form of collaboration, is to try to sort out who's doing what there. And certainly this is anecdotally from the field. A pretty consistent gripe is that they'll be called by PD, and then PD will say, he's altered, take him. And then, we have and then we end up in our usual cycle of take him to the nearest place, sit there for 3 hours till there's a bed. Do you believe that has improved in the last 18 months?
I don't think it's improved. I think we have to recognize at the end of the day, patient safety is paramount. And it's very difficult for a paramedic, let alone a physician, to quickly determine whether someone is psychotic, has a functional or organic etiology of their issues. And many of these patients with acute or chronic mental health issues have an acute drug intoxication, occult head injury, infection. The list is pretty wide. So some of these are straightforward, known mental health patients with acute psychosis and no medical issues. I would say the overwhelming majority of patients that we transport, there's a known or potential medical issue, and they do need medical clearance, either with intoxicants, head injury, infections, and so forth. And there is a risk that when these patients are transported by LAPD, obviously they're unmonitored, they may go to a jail instead of an emergency department, and that's not without risk. So we have to err on the side of patient safety. So right now the officers have discretion whether to call for us or not.
Got it. So in your professional opinion, we're not over-transporting. It makes sense, the level of transport that we're doing.
No, I think we are over-transporting.
I know, but not as a result of misidentification by PD.
I think at the end of the day, it's a very slippery slope, because it's very easy to attribute someone's mental status or presentation to a known history of psychiatric problems, but they have a coexistent acute ingestion or occult head injury that's missed and often catastrophic consequences.
So we'll call it a pretty significant gray area there that falls into. Okay, so the other piece of collaboration I'm wondering about is what is our collaboration around advocacy with LAPD? It's one thing to collaborate with them around service provision. It's another thing to say, okay, what are we going to do together to develop some proposals that we are going to start trying to drive through the legislative process, whether it's the city or the county. Us plus police is a lot more powerful than us alone or police alone. And if it's us plus PD plus, a couple other folks, that's now we got something going. So I guess that's my other question. Is there some sort of a working group that is a cross-agency think tank that's generating proposals for us to be moving forward?
Yes, the LA County District Attorney has convened a task force. They've met a few times. Myself and command staff has been part of that task force. I don't think there's been a lot of traction there. I think ultimately what I've seen some other cities do successfully is you have to have a specialized team, And Chief Terrazas and I had discussed creating a similar team where, like an LAFD version of a SMART team, where we have a firefighter paramedic married up with a mental health professional.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, I think ultimately the best interest of these patients and the system and the community as a whole would be to have expertise on scene to say which patients can be safely transported directly to an inpatient psychiatric facility when they're already on a hold, rather than a local ED or even an LPS facility. At the end of the day, right now, to have paramedics transport patients who are acutely psychotic with a known history of psychiatric disorder and no medical problems, which still happens, and then they take the wall, obviously, is extremely problematic for everybody. So I think there's some novel long-term solutions, but that's ultimately, I think, would be the goal. Patient has a well-defined need. There's a screening on scene by proper expertise, and they get transported directly to an inpatient psychiatric facility that can accommodate them.
So look, I'm all in favor of the operational creativity to try to come up with solutions. That's great. I want to see more of that. The question, though, I'm asking is, to what extent are we either taking leadership or building a leadership group with PD to go together, not to create, for us to create a new unit within our department, but actually to go to the hospitals together, or I guess the district attorney created something. I just go back to what I always say here, which is, if we want to control our destiny, then we got to take the lead on this stuff, and we're the ones who get hammered by it ultimately. So that's really my question: is how are we taking a policy lead on this, and not just by ourselves, but but in a collaborative way with at least the police department, who this is a simpatico moment we have with them, where their folks are sitting in the hospitals with wall time too, and we should be looking for things to collaborate on, whether it's the two of us going together and saying, we need to have more money for funding for more LPS facilities, or collaboratively watching this clinic situation to say, okay, well, would clinic transport be part of the solution? That's what I'm wondering. Is I think we have a history of trying to go it alone here, and we cannot go it alone on this stuff. So that's my question: is what is the kind of policy connection?
Let me weigh on that, Commissioner. There's an effort that just began, a county-city effort. The focus is homelessness.
Right.
Large percentage of them have mental illness. And we went to the first meeting last week. Chief Tim Kelly is our rep, and he gave a report back on Monday. And what this is, there's a series of summit meetings coming up over the next few months. And there was over 100 attendees representing multiple city and county agencies. And we're looking at multiple pieces of that because we are the ones that deal with them on a regular basis. We're the gatekeepers to determine which direction we're going to take our patient. And I do see some collaboration opportunities there. So to your question about how are we proceeding, in this matter, we're looking at this vehicle, the county-city summit meetings that are coming up, to create a policy response to homelessness, which will deal with not all the mental cases, but a big percentage of them.
Look, I think it's a step forward. These are all steps forward. Look, and I know I'm not naive. I know that part of the issue is that this is work, and it takes somebody to show up to a 3-hour meeting and then do the follow-up, and then call somebody on the phone and say, let's get some more people together. As we proceed down the pathway of an EMS bureau creation, my guess is it's not going to be in this fiscal year, but we need to start thinking about a civilian public health representative that's going to really be our person who is doing the convening, going to the meetings, making the calls, taking the lead on this stuff. We can't do the business as usual on this, which is try harder. I mean, we have to continue to try harder, and we need to try stuff, and I'm very, very heartened by what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, and we're going to get to the budget in a little bit, about the new things we're talking about. I love that you're talking about pairing up with social workers or mental health professionals. That's great stuff. We will not be successful, though, if we try to go it alone. And so that's really what I'm asking you guys to think about, is beyond the operational work that you're doing, which is great, how are we building the collaboration and not trying to go it alone? Because we'll get killed if we continue. We will continue to be killed, I should say, if we try to go it alone. So you can think about that, and I know that this is it's a longer discussion. We've talked about this for a while, but put that on the just put that on the burner somewhere as you're thinking about that EMS bureau in the context of wall time. I think it's just a great catch-all context, as it covers, homeless is a huge part of this, substance abuse, psych issues. We can't do it by ourselves. At the same time, we need to be thinking about different ways to do what we do, which we are doing. So, we'll continue to come back to this. I'll continue to talk about it. But unless there's some other questions on this from folks over here.
As we've had this discussion, I've concerns for me about the dangers for firefighters has been raised. Because if you come across a mental health patient who, and I've seen some on the streets, I don't know how they begin to try to do this alone. So I agree with you that we probably need to collaborate, but I am very concerned about the safety of firefighters now after listening and thinking about this whole issue when it comes to mental health patients. That's something we should I'd like to hear more about from somebody, I guess. So how do we protect our firefighters from mental health patients? I mean, just transporting an ill person is another story, but one who has other issues, and then they determining what the issue is, that may be like a little bit out of their realm, because whether it's drugs or whatever else that's making them go off, there's a danger there, and that flag was raised for me as I've listened to this. And then the other thing is, I don't hear you mentioning Harbor UCLA, and I know they have a mental health ward. And I know that the Watts South LA, that's the only place we have to go for assistance. And I know they transport a lot out of that area. I'm not sure how we work, why that facility is not mentioned. Because I do know they have a mental health department, which is probably full, as all the others are. But I've been there when they kind of wander around, the mental health patients there. It's an interesting institution. So I don't know why that's not mentioned. Is it?
If I could make a suggestion, I'm advised that we are. I take responsibility. We've strayed from the wall time aspect of this. What I think might make sense for us to do is actually have a fuller discussion just about our interaction with mental health patients and what that looks like, and what some of the challenges are there with that particular group of folks. Would that be something we could have you come back or talk about, just what that looks like for us, where we transport to, what are the challenges there, and what we need to do? Would that be all right?
Certainly.
Okay.
And then give us an update on maybe all of the facilities that are available and what the logistics and what the problems and issues are with those places.
Yeah.
Because I know Harbor City has a new emergency center.
Yeah. To be sure, we do transport to Harbor UCLA, and then they usually are full, as is USC.
Yeah. Okay. So taking into account some of your very important questions there, what we'll think about how we agendize this another time to really have a fuller discussion about some of the statistics and what all that how that all fits together. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Move to receive and file the report on wall time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you. All right. Moving to our next item, we are now on item 5D, which is our fiscal year 2015-16 budget status.
Morning. Emilio Rodriguez, Administrative Services Bureau, Budget Section. I'm here to present a status on the current year budget, and the following agenda item will segue into next year's 16-17 fiscal year budget. The department is operating on a total budget of $628 million, and we're currently projecting a year-end deficit of approximately $15 million, resulting primarily from shortfalls in sworn overtime accounts and one-time payouts to retiring members. There are several contributing factors for that shortfall. And just to summarize, it would include a payment of FL/SA overtime to a broader range of sworn personnel, essentially personnel not directly involved in fire suppression, which would include air ambulance, and dispatchers. There's also constant staffing overtime due to staffing shortages, drop exits, and compensated time off due to vacation, sick time injuries, etc. Excess sick time payouts in connection with drop exits, and finally, overtime for sworn resources deployed outside of the city. We've had a lot of activity, wildfire activity throughout the state, as you've noted. We're expecting to receive reimbursements of roughly $1.5 million through mutual aid activity for some of that outside activity. Savings are expected in other accounts, although it's too early to anticipate any true offsets given past trends on certain spending, such as maintenance for the fire fleet, which is often a sort of volatile expense. As a snapshot on hiring, the adopted budget includes funding for 5 recruit training classes to support a total of nearly 300 recruits. 3 training classes will be completed this fiscal year, and the remaining 2 in the following year. And just finally, as we speak, the CAO is finalizing its first FSR to the City Council. Fire does not have any major requests in that report other than to move this year's bond purchases, bond purchases through the MICLA program forward. This time, do you have any questions?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I know developing the budget is a huge undertaking every year, so I think it always warrants a thank you for all the hard work that you and your group put in on this. I'm particularly excited about the budget. I think we've got some great stuff in here that really, I think, represents a shift in how we're thinking as a department to one, bring back some of the resources that we lost, but 2, to be bringing into play more newer concepts here that I think are really going to help us. We're going to try out some new stuff, and hopefully we're going to see some great results coming out of that. So I want to just thank the chief and his crew for getting that stuff in there. We can take D and E. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm confused. It's my first time chairing the meeting, so I get to use that excuse once.
Find it is harder to chair and participate, right?
Sorry, that was 15-16 and 16-17. My apologies. I ran them together. Can we take? Is it okay if we take the 2 together? Is that okay with you? Okay.
They're both on the budget, right? Yeah, they're both budget.
In that case, I'll segue into.
Go ahead. Feel free. Yes, my mistake. I got overly excited.
The LAFD is in the process of preparing the FY 16-17 operational budget, and we respectfully present the proposed budget requests for your consideration that are included in attachments 1 and 2 for a total of $688 million. As shown in the list of proposed budget requests, again included as attachment 1 to the report before you, the department's focus is on improving response times and continuing to roll out programs that will optimize efficiencies in the delivery of emergency services, such as the fast response vehicle program and the nurse practitioner response unit. The proposed budget is funding 4 new recruit classes and 2 classes that overlap from the current fiscal year. This level of hiring is necessary to meet anticipated vacancies due to exits, again, from the job program and other service retirements. Other important priorities in these preliminary budget proposals include replacement of critical equipment that can no longer be deferred, such as face pieces. There's about $3 million for that. Restoration of 2 engine companies and funding to advance the department's IT infrastructure. The operating budget is estimated at $62 million above the current year budget. About half of that covers salary requirements and the balance for new requests, which I briefly went over. And We'll continue to develop the budget in accordance with the mayor guidelines and are anticipating returning to the commission by November 17th in order to meet the mayor's charter deadline of November 20th. Thank you.
Questions on this aspect of the
Go ahead.
this item? Any questions? No?
No, you may go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, continuing with my my previous out of order comments. I think it's great. The question I will just pose is, as we develop our budget and we look at positions here and there, I want to encourage the chief and other folks to, where there are new positions being created, please consider those that can be staffed by civilians instead of sworn. If it's a new position, and recognizing that not all positions can be a civilian, but at the same token, not all positions that we have need to be sworn, and they are potentially more cost-effective to be using civilians in certain cases. Again, this is for new positions. It also prevents us from pulling folks out of an already understaffed field. So that's really my only comment on this. And I don't have enough visibility in here to kind of see what you've got there, but that's just sort of a general principle I want to put out there of a way to save some money on things. Otherwise, I'm excited about what's in here. Oh, yes, and we do have a public comment on item, thank you, on item 5E.
Oh, while the public comment is coming.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where is the section on recruitment? Are we including in this the recruitment department that we just created, the position? Where is that? That's in this current one, but it's not continuing in the next one. It's enough to continue it into the next period. Okay.
Anything to add on that? Nope. Okay, great. Captain Lima.
Thank you, Commissioners. Frank Lima with the United Firefighters. I'm here today to generally support the proposed budget submitted by Chief Terrazas with a few comments about priorities. But first of all, I'd like to thank the Chief for proposing a budget that asks for an increase of $62 million over our current fiscal year. Given the fact that the LAFD is still the most understaffed big city fire department in the country, it is appropriate for the Chief to finally continue to ask for additional resources. Our previous Chief not only didn't ask for the resources that our department needed, he completely sold us out and stood silent with many deputy chiefs while our department was decimated. So thank you, Chief Terrazas, for making the case for additional funding. Let me start with the 4 drill tower classes and the 2 overlapping. We're going to lose over 200 firefighters through the drop, natural attrition, so hiring has got to be our top priority. And if anything, we would just ask, let's try to fund and stuff in more classes than is currently being asked for. UFLAC also supports the Chief's request to restore 2 engine companies along with the drill tower classes. And these engine companies must be a priority. I believe the ratio is out of line here with it should be 1 battalion EIT restoration to 1 suppression restoration, not have the battalions, commanders, EITs exceed suppression resources. Another thing is UFLAC really supports the request for the turnouts, and this will be year 3 of 3, not year 2 of 3. And we basically ask that, with the carcinogens we're exposed to on a daily basis, that let's just finish this off. And I'm very confident that the mayor and council will politically support that. Let's ask for what's needed in the Fire Prevention Bureau. We've discussed that. And just on the nurse practitioner and fast response unit program, remember, these are pilots. So, we cannot expand too quickly without data on effectiveness of these programs. We want data on everything else, but, let's just have the data back up these programs. Are pilots right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can we get a motion to adopt the recommendations for items 5, D, and E?
So moved.
Get a second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you. All right. Item 5D, item E, and that leaves 5G, verbal update by department on the quarterly fire stat trend analysis. Chief?
Good morning, Commissioners, Council, Chief Terrazas. This is our update for October of 2015 on the status of our fire stat program. At the end of September, we completed our third round of emergency operations resources fire stat inspection meetings. We're just entering the fourth quarter, and October was our month for the administrative operations areas of the department. This Thursday will mark the third set of meetings and inspections. We'll be doing the disaster response section in the Fire Prevention Bureau. The program continues to be supported at the highest levels of the organization. Deputy Deputy Mario Rueda has been at every single meeting and has facilitated for the emergency operations areas of the departments. Chief Deputy Mathis has attended and facilitated, along with Chief Rueda, at the administrative operations inspection meetings for the organization. All of the deputy chiefs for the geographical bureaus attend those meetings, and Chief Terrazas also attends the meetings periodically and updates the members and participates in that process. So we are seeing a broad organizational support for this endeavor, and we're seeing some successes. The 2016 schedule for the entire year was recently completed and distributed internally. So each of our deputy chiefs and all of the bureaus, divisions, and sections have that schedule and have an opportunity to review that and prepare for that for the next year. As this process evolves, we continue to seek out training opportunities. We recently had administrative staff from the geographical bureaus attend training sessions here at City Hall East with the fire stat staff. In addition to that, we seek out outside training opportunities. We utilize the Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government and subject matter experts there, and several of our members have attended training there. We have conversations and dialogue on a regular basis with subject matter experts from the University of Southern California here locally. And early next month, the staff from our 4 geographical bureaus, the administrative staff, will be attending training collaboratively with the staff from the fire stat section, the Center for Public Safety and Excellence here in Anaheim. In this last round of fire stat inspection meetings, we have really paid attention to the mayor's back to basics priority initiatives and outcomes with a focus on supporting the LAFD strategic plan. So each of our bureaus, divisions, and sections, when they came to this process, they made sure that the goals and objectives that they had were in alignment with the 9 goals of our strategic plan. And we found that was a good process to introduce the goals and strategy and tactics of our strategic plan into the fire stat process and performance stat process across the department. The last thing I want to talk about is trends. One of the things that we have identified clearly is that weather affects our requests for services and our transports. Whether the weather in California terms, when I say extreme weather, when it gets hot here in Southern California, our call load goes up, our request for transports goes up. And also the rain. The rain impacts us not only on an EMS basis, but also our non-EMS type calls with our automatic alarms and other activities related to wires down. And so we're going to see a lot of that in the coming months with the El Nino predictions. One of the major trends that we see is our call load has increased much more significantly than normal. And this process has identified where we would normally see a 2 to 3% increase in our call load on an average year. Last year, 2014, we saw a 5% increase in our overall call load, predominantly EMS. And this year, we're on pace to have an 8 to 9% overall increase in our call load. We attribute that primarily to the Affordable Care Act and the access to insurance services in the medically underserved communities. And we're in the process of doing a deeper analysis at a granular level to really clarify what that means. I'll take any questions you might have.
Oh, go ahead.
How long have we been at this now? This is about 2 years now, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. How do you? You've been in this position for about a year now. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
A happy anniversary.
Thank you.
How do you? Just kind of looking at it a year in, how do you feel like this is going, and what do you see as which potentials do you feel like we're seeing realized here? Where do you feel like there's more potential to be realized? If you feel comfortable sharing at this point, or if it's something you want to think about, you can think about it. But I'm sort of giving you this kind of off the cuff, but I'm curious, kind of a year in, what you feel like you're seeing around the system.
I do think about it. I think about it on a regular basis. When I came to this section, we had been at it for some period of time in a pilot program. Chief Terrazas had been with the organization as our fire chief for a few months, and we opted for what we called a tactical pause or an operational pause to rethink what we had accomplished over that first several months. And now we've had another year to be at this, and we've had some conversations about not necessarily taking a pause, but maybe a pause to discuss what the next generation of the performance stat process, fire stat, looks like. We have dialogue and inquiry that I've talked about in the past on a level that we've never had it before. We explore options and solutions at a level that we never had before. In the administrative areas of the department and organization, we're recognizing gains and improvements and improved processes, and we're saving money, and I think that our overall emergency response and our ability to provide exceptional public safety has improved dramatically because of this process. It's a journey, and I keep telling people it's a journey. It's not something that a year in or 2 years in you can say we're there. Chief Deputy Rueda reminds people on a regular basis we're not there yet. I'm not sure we'll ever be there. I think it's an ongoing process. This process allows us to basically conduct these analyses and inquiries to try and improve our processes and our performance and our delivery of public safety and emergency service on a regular basis.
Great. And what are we, thank you, appreciate the thoughtful answer. What are we looking at? What are the main categories? Are we still looking at the same things we were looking at a year ago, which was turnout time, and I forget what the other two were, but is it the same categories?
Call processing time, turnout time, and travel time I think are three areas that we will always look at.
Mm-hmm.
And while we'll recognize small improvements in those areas, I think the idea that our call load has gone up so dramatically, and that although we've incrementally increased the amount of resources that we have available, I think it's really a tribute to the professionalism and performance of the members that we have in the field, that our travel time and our response times haven't really changed while the call load has gone up dramatically. It's pretty impressive, actually, that we provide the same level of service with an increased call load like that. There's so many areas that this is a valuable tool in, and it's going to continue to change. The things that we measure continue to change. We are looking at training hours and the amount of funds that we can recognize in reimbursements through the VET program, through the CalJack apprenticeship program. We increased that dramatically this last 6 months. We have safety programs in the Supply and Maintenance Division that we've implemented out in the Valley Operations Valley Bureau, or the Valley section of the Supply and Maintenance Division, recognized a tremendous result in their safety program with 0 injuries over the past 6 months. We recognized several changes. The amount of money that we collected because of tracking and analyzing and tracking the training hours for probationary firefighters and for our members that we're promoting dozens and dozens of members, and we track that in an apprenticeship program. That's where we're recognizing that increase in those monies. We're seeing all sorts of improvements in all the different areas. Chief Vidovich and what Captain DeGrotto talked about, the improvements that we're seeing in the Fire Prevention Bureau, that's all on some level a result of the inquiry that we have as a result of the fire stat process.
If I could add on to that, Chief Poyer's been doing great. Fire stat section is outstanding, and I think the best way to summarize my observation is that we're optimizing capacity at all levels. If you look at it at the emergency operations side, we're focusing on response times, super users, training hours, work comp injuries, disciplinary cases. On the admin side, I didn't fully realize the value of that until I saw the effort and preparation all our admin offices were attributing to their fire stat presentation, and then the deliberation that occurs during the process, and then the fixes that are implemented post fire stat. And what Chief Poyer said regarding response times is correct. We'll always be looking at those metrics. And when I see an unanticipated jump of a few seconds, I walk over to FireStat and ask them to explain it to me. And that's where we've learned about weather conditions, the flu season, a long-duration major emergency, draws a lot of resources and can impact overall response times. The Affordable Care Act, there's a study, we have a student worker coming up, a graduate student, working on a project to see if there's a correlation between our spike in calls and the Affordable Care Act. We believe that there is. Just last week, we had a 16% increase in our incidents and in our transports. So across the board, if I had to summarize it, I think FireStat's value is optimizing capacity, and it's a great tool. And it's a tribute to you, Chief, and to your staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Two things I'd say. One is, as you consider a pause, there's a lot that's great about it. I'm always interested in what we can be doing better. And so I'd love for you to think about that. And then next time we see you, I'd love to hear more about, here are the improvements that we could do that would make this even more impactful, more meaningful, so you can think about what those things are. The other thing is, don't underestimate the value in reporting. So particularly as we're coming into budget season, I think one of the big values of having FireStat and all that data at our fingertips is when we walk in the door, and when I say we, I mean you, to go talk to a council member or a budget committee or whatever, present that data that shows that we have had an 8% increase in call load. We've had, but these are the numbers of runs we're going on. This is what the response looks like. Show that stuff, because I think that stuff paints a compelling need picture for us that helps us. And that's, I believe, where we've suffered in the past is presenting information about what we need, but not having the data to back it up and say this is what it means. So really encourage you to dig into the reporting function on that stuff and present it in the way you're starting to tell us about it. That's just really compelling. But thanks for your work. I look forward to hearing more next time we see you about what are the new ideas we want to try out here that are going to help this continue along the journey, as you aptly point out, to get us to that sort of amorphous goal of the of best. Thank you so much. Any other questions over here?
Are you still having department meetings on FireStat?
Yes, ma'am.
When we don't get a schedule anymore, I don't know
Great point.
when it is.
Could
I
we get a
did
schedule?
enjoy the ones I went to. I'd probably like to schedule to go to some others.
Great question.
Right. There's a couple of things. We had emailed the 2015 schedule to each of the commissioners, but that's not really an efficient way in a PDF format. I will provide you with the 2016 schedule. I'll provide you with the schedule for the remaining meetings here in 2015. And then we are making that available on the portal as well, so that if somehow you can't find that email or that PDF, you have access to it on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think
We're trying to get access to the portal, but anyway,
Still.
that's another issue.
Come by my cubicle over there, and I'll let you know.
If the thought strikes you, I think even if you're resetting the calendar quarterly, I think it just brings it to the top of our box. We get a lot of paper.
I'll do that. I'll make sure you have that available to you.
Thank you. That would be great. Okay. Anything else? No. All right. That brings us to the end. We have one public comment. Captain Lima, it's your.
Commissioners, Frank Lima with UFLAC. We've heard that there's a increased demand for our services with a dramatic decrease in resources, and people wonder why response times have gone up. In response to Commissioner Glazer's comment about adding additional civilians, I need to go on record saying that today's UFLAC has been open to change, unlike the past. We didn't fight many of the current civilian positions, nurse practitioner unit and more, but I can promise you that we will fight further civilianization. This is not in line with the mayor's priorities or the council. I can make that clear. And it is just not needed any longer. Again, we have been working in collaboration on these issues, but further civilianization of our positions will be a non-starter for our firefighters. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn? All right. Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.